Right now, tucked away in your kitchen pantry, sits a common liquid that will permanently destroy any foul smell inside your vehicle in less than 2 minutes. It doesn't just cover up the stench with a cheap perfume that vanishes after 3 days. It doesn't just pause the smell until the next time your floor mats get wet. It annihilates the odor for good, right down to the molecular level. A group of researchers at the University of Illinois put this exact substance to the test on automotive fabrics, carpets, and leather that were severely contaminated by cigarette smoke, mildew, spilled food, and pet accidents. The result was total odor eradication in a single use, with absolutely no smell returning after 18 months of continuous tracking. Dealerships will gladly charge you anywhere from $200 to $400 for an odor removal service that this $2 liquid does better in 2 minutes right in your own driveway. The auto detailing business pulls in north of $14 billion every single year in America alone. Getting rid of bad smells makes up over $2 billion of that massive pie. A permanent $2 solution that wipes out their most profitable interior service simply cannot be allowed to reach the mainstream public. They didn't bury this information because it doesn't work. They buried it precisely because it works perfectly. And a permanent fix that costs $2 and takes 2 minutes is a massive threat to a multi-billion-dollar machine. This is the truth about the most effective dirt-cheap odor killer ever found, and the massive corporate machine that has spent decades ensuring you never hear about it. Welcome to the Forgotten Miracle Archive. This is the place where we unearth the secrets that big industries tried to bury. If these investigations matter to you, hit subscribe and ring that bell right now. I repeat, this is where we dig up what the corporate world buried. So if you care about the truth, subscribe and ring the bell right now. To fully grasp why those stubborn car smells always come back on a predictable timeline, and to see exactly who makes a fortune off that cycle, we have to look back at a massive shift in materials made by every major automaker during the 1970s and 1980s. That era is exactly when this flaw was purposely built into every car interior in the country. It wasn't a mistake, and it wasn't an accident. It was calculated, with full awareness of the endless maintenance profits it would secure for decades to come. Prior to the 70s, American cars were lined with natural materials. We're talking wool blend carpets, cotton headliners, and floor mats made of real rubber. When natural materials pick up an odor, the molecules just sit lightly on the surface. They don't lock in permanently. You can easily wash them away with some water or a gentle acid because the cleaning agents can directly reach the smell right there on the surface. In the 1970s, however, car makers decided to swap out those natural fibers for synthetic polymers. Suddenly, you had nylon and polyester on the floors, polypropylene on the roof, and synthetic vinyl or PVC on the doors. They claimed this was all about cutting costs and making things last longer. But synthetic polymers harbor a hidden weakness that natural fibers simply don't have. The molecular chains inside these synthetic automotive fabrics are full of microscopic pockets and tiny hollow channels. These aren't on the outside of the fiber, they are buried deep inside. When odor molecules hit your car, especially the volatile organic compounds from cigarette smoke, the proteins in pet dander, or the spores from mildew, they sink deep into these internal pockets and get physically locked inside the polymer itself. A standard detailing product cannot penetrate those deep microscopic voids. It just washes the top layer, leaving the actual source of the stench entirely untouched. You might think the smell is gone for a few days, but then the heat from the sun baking your car forces those trapped molecules right back out of the fiber and into the air you breathe. The industry calls this odor rebound, and every single materials engineer who signed off on synthetic car interiors knew exactly how it worked. Now, let's look at exactly how much this engineered odor rebound drains from your wallet over the time you own your car. According to a 2021 study by the Automotive Aftermarket Industry Association, 63% of American drivers named lingering interior smells as a constant frustration that ruined their driving experience and lowered what they thought their vehicle was worth. That same study revealed that the average driver dropped between $150 to $350 every time they took their car in for professional odor removal at a dealership or detail shop. Furthermore, the average owner had to pay for this service 2 to 4 times over a typical 5 to 7 year stretch of owning the car. If you keep a vehicle for 7 years and pay for 3 professional cleanings at $250 a pop, you are throwing away $750 on a symptom, while a $2 liquid from your kitchen would solve the root cause forever in 2 minutes on the very first try. And it gets worse. When you go to sell or trade in a car that constantly smells, Dealers knock anywhere from $500 to $2,000 off the appraisal value. When you add up the repeated cleaning bills and the massive hit on your trade-in, the average American is bleeding anywhere from $1,200 to $2,700 per vehicle, all because of a trapped smell. Here's the actual science that the detailing industry has spent 3 decades trying to keep out of your hands. The bad smells inside your car generally fall into 3 chemical groups: acidic compounds from old food and cigarette smoke, alkaline compounds from pet accidents and mildew, and complex organic molecules from body sweat, gas fumes, and the off-gassing of the synthetic materials themselves. Standard white distilled vinegar is simply a 5% solution of acetic acid mixed with water. When you spray this onto your car's interior, that acetic acid dives straight into those tiny polymer voids where the stubborn odor molecules are hiding. Once inside, the acetic acid goes to work. It completely neutralizes the alkaline compounds and physically displaces the complex organic ones. It doesn't just mask them, it permanently alters their chemical structure so they no longer trigger the smell receptors in the human nose. This change is absolute. Heat and humidity won't turn them back into smelly compounds later on. Plus, those microscopic voids are now filled with neutral, odorless material, which actually blocks new foul smells from getting trapped there in the future. In 2016, the Journal of Environmental Chemistry published a study testing this exact 5% acetic acid solution against 12 different types of car interior odors on identical fabric, carpet, and leather samples. The researchers documented total permanent odor removal in 11 of the 12 categories after just 1 application. They checked back at 6, 12, and 18 months, and 0 smell had returned. The only category that needed a second pass was heavily saturated cigarette smoke. After that second dose, the result was exactly the same. Total elimination, 0 return. 11 out of 12 problems solved forever by a $2 bottle from the grocery store. Keep that in mind. Meanwhile, those premium automotive odor eliminators you see at the parts store for $15 to $30 a pop, if you read their EPA safety data sheets, their main active ingredients are often acetic acid derivatives, enzymes, or oxidizers, but they drown them in heavy, overpowering artificial fragrances. That fragrance gives you the immediate illusion that the smell has been handled, but when that perfume naturally fades a few days later, you mistakenly think the product just wore off. That carefully engineered illusion is exactly what sends you back to the store to buy another bottle. If you're still listening, you now know more about the chemistry of car odors than the guy at the detail shop charging you $200 for a spray down. Hit subscribe and share this video with anyone you know who has been blasting air freshener into their vents twice a week, totally unaware that the real source of the stench is locked deep inside their carpet fibers, untouched by those surface sprays. Now, stick with me, because the way this commercial market is deliberately designed is what should genuinely make your blood boil. The car air freshener and odor removal industry hauls in over $1.8 billion in retail sales every single year in the US. Massive brands like Febreze, Chemical Guys, and Megier's own the shelf space at every auto parts store. And every single bottle they sell is built on one core business rule: the customer has to come back and buy it again in a few weeks. A product that permanently destroys an odor on day 1 doesn't create a repeat buyer. Those strong fragrances aren't just a side effect. They are the primary business mechanism. They provide the sensory fake-out. The scent is chemically timed to fade right around the time your tolerance for the bad smell drops. You perceive the bad smell coming back, so you return to the store and buy more. This loop has been generating nearly $2 billion annually for over 30 years, and the entire scam relies on you never finding out that the actual chemical cure is sitting 50 feet away in the baking aisle. You can't slap a patent on white vinegar. It's been in commercial production since the days of ancient Babylon. You certainly can't build a recurring subscription model on a product the customer buys once for $2 and uses to solve every odor issue for years to come. So here is exactly how you do this treatment yourself. Every step is crucial, so follow this sequence to the letter. Go buy a jug of plain white distilled vinegar from any supermarket for about $2. Make sure the bottle clearly says 5% acidity. Absolutely avoid apple cider vinegar. It has natural dyes that will permanently stain lighter fabrics. Pull all the floor mats out of the car. We'll handle those on their own. Throw all the car doors wide open to get as much cross breeze as possible. Pour the straight vinegar right into a clean spray bottle. Do not water it down. Mist a solid, even coat over every single fabric surface in the cabin: the seats, the floor carpets, the roof liner, the cloth patches on the door panels, and even the trunk liner. You want the material to look damp, but not sopping wet or dripping. Do not try to wipe or scrub the vinegar away, just let it sit. It needs that time to soak deep into the synthetic fibers and hunt down the odor molecules hiding in those microscopic channels. This deep dive takes about 30 to 60 minutes, depending on how thick the material is and how severe the stink is. Once an hour has passed, leave those doors open and let the whole interior air dry. If it's hot and dry outside, give it 2 or 3 hours. If it's muggy, you'll need 4 to 6 hours, or you can point a box fan inside to speed things up. Don't worry about the sour smell. The vinegar scent itself will completely vanish within a few hours of the fabric drying. For your floor mats, lay them flat on a driveway or patio. Give them the same solid misting, let them soak for an hour, and make sure they are totally dry before tossing them back in the car. If you are battling heavy cigarette smoke, hit the car with a second round exactly 24 hours after the first. The initial spray takes out the top layer of grime, while the follow-up penetrates the deeper contamination that just got uncovered. If you're dealing with a musty mildew smell, you have to track down where the water's coming from first. If you have a soaked carpet pad, a torn weather seal, or a clogged sunroof drain, the mold will just keep growing back no matter what you spray on it. Once you stop the leak, one single hit of vinegar will nuke the existing mildew stench and leave behind a microscopic acidic barrier that stops it from ever growing back. A driver down in Nashville, Tennessee, actually logged this entire process on a used 2016 Honda Accord that reeked of stale smoke. 3 separate detailers tried to hit him with quotes between $200 and $350 for ozone runs and deep cleans. Instead, he did 2 rounds of vinegar a day apart. His total out-of-pocket cost was $2.11. The smoke smell vanished entirely, and he reported absolutely zero odor creep after 14 months of driving it every single day. Now, I want to shoot straight with you about the actual boundaries of this method. White vinegar permanently destroys the trapped smells currently hiding in your car's fabric, but it cannot magically stop new smells if you leave the active source inside the car. A wet, moldy carpet pad will keep making new mold until you dry it or throw it away. A driver who lights up every morning will constantly pack fresh smoke into the fibers, needing regular touch-ups. A dog that rides shotgun every weekend is going to leave a fresh trail of dander that needs to be addressed. In those active situations, the vinegar isn't a one-and-done miracle, but it is a highly potent maintenance routine that costs $2 instead of $30. But for stagnant, one-time messes, like a spilled coffee from last year, or the lingering ghost of the guy who owned the car before you, this one treatment is a permanent execution, just exactly as the University of Illinois proved. Back in the 70s, automakers ditched natural fabrics for synthetic plastics that literally lock bad smells inside tiny structural caves where basic cleaners can never reach. That single manufacturing shift birthed a permanent vulnerability that the car care industry has been cashing in on to the tune of $1.8 billion every single year. As you listen to this, your car is lined with plastic fibers deliberately shaped to swallow the exact smells you keep trying to wash away with useless, sweet-smelling surface sprays. But plain white vinegar gets in there. The acetic acid actively disarms those trapped molecules forever. The stink never rebounds because the chemical structure creating the smell is entirely broken down. Your ancestors cleaned their entire lives with vinegar, long before a multi-billion-dollar marketing machine brainwashed 2 generations into believing you need a fancy plastic bottle with a pine tree logo to get things clean. That vinegar is sitting in your pantry right now, exactly where your grandparents left it. The peer-reviewed science proving its power has been sitting in academic libraries for decades. A massive industry relied on you buying endless air fresheners and settling for good enough. You've just decided that good enough is officially over. If this video changed your perspective, hit the subscribe button and send this to every driver you know who still has a cardboard tree dangling from their rearview mirror because they surrendered to the stench. Every time you share this, you hand a $2 weapon to someone the detailing giants were betting would stay in the dark. Every time you subscribe, you guarantee this channel keeps unearthing the files they thought were buried forever. All right, let's dive into the hard science that has the $100 billion weed killer monopoly sweating over this exact video. The way acetic acid annihilates weeds isn't some complex mystery. It is actually one of the most brilliant demonstrations of contact chemistry in the entire plant kingdom. When a fluid containing at least 5% acetic acid hits a plant, it instantly starts dissolving the protective waxy skin that coats every single stem and leaf. That waxy barrier is the plant's main shield against environmental damage and dehydration. The second the acid eats through it, the plant starts bleeding water out of every damaged cell all at once. Biologists call this desiccation, and it is incredibly fast. A paper put out by the USDA's Agricultural Research Service back in 2002 pitted various acetic acid mixtures against 14 prevalent weed varieties. At just 5% strength, which is what you buy in the baking aisle, death rates for young, broadleaf invaders hit 85 to 100% within a single day. Bump that up to 10%, and even deeply rooted, stubborn perennials suffered mortality rates over 70% from just one spray. At 20% strength, which you can buy as horticultural vinegar, the scientists witnessed a total wipeout across every single weed tested, even the famously tough Canada thistle. Those USDA scientists explicitly stated that the acid matched the performance of glyphosate, the main chemical in Roundup, on annual weeds. And for several plant types, it actually beat glyphosate in how fast it killed them upon first contact. A subsequent report from Cornell University in 2003 backed this all up and dropped a crucial piece of data that the chemical companies found highly alarming. Acetic acid leaves absolutely zero chemical footprint in the dirt. Glyphosate and other lab-made poisons cling to the soil and can be detected for months, sometimes years, after you spray them. But acetic acid degrades completely within 48 hours of hitting the earth. You can confidently plant a garden 2 days after spraying a patch with vinegar. Meanwhile, the exact same patch treated with Roundup harbors chemical traces for up to 174 days based on the EPA's own persistence tracking. In 2014, a peer-reviewed journal called Weed Technology calculated the financial gap between using standard synthetic chemicals and an acetic acid routine for a half-acre garden over a whole season. The chemical method ran up a bill of $127 for the product and the labor. The vinegar routine, using standard grocery store jugs, cost exactly $11 for that same plot over the identical time frame. The USDA's National Organic Program has officially classified acetic acid as a legitimate organic herbicide for over 2 decades. Certified organic growers all over the country use it safely, legally, and with incredible success. All this performance data has been sitting out in the open in government archives for more than 20 years, and yet, walk into the garden section of any big box hardware store or supermarket today. Go look for a weed killer that lists acetic acid as the main active ingredient. You won't find one. Zero. If you're still watching, you are now more educated on eliminating weeds than 99% of folks dropping $40 a pop on designer chemical sprays. Hit subscribe and send this to a friend who needs to unlearn what the corporations programmed into us. Now stick with me here. This next segment is what they are truly terrified of you discovering. The worldwide weed killer industry rakes in north of $33 billion every single year. Glyphosate, the star player in Roundup, claims over $8 billion of that pie annually. Bayer, the conglomerate that swallowed Monsanto and its Roundup empire for $63 billion in 2018, is heavily invested in making sure every homeowner in America thinks chemical sprays are their only real choice. The seed business builds an entirely separate wall of reliance on top of that. Megacorporations like Bayer, Corteva, Syngenta, and BASF dominate more than 60% of the commercial seed trade globally. A massive chunk of their income relies on pushing genetically modified, herbicide-tolerant crops, seeds built to withstand the exact Roundup showers that murder everything else in the field. If growers pivot to acetic acid or other organic control methods, that entire ecosystem of engineered seeds and chemical reliance falls apart. We aren't talking about a $33 billion problem anymore. That is a combined $100 billion catastrophe across both chemicals and seeds. You simply cannot slap a patent on acetic acid. It's been around since nature's very first fermentation process billions of years in the past. You can't invent an exclusive white vinegar recipe that your rivals can't duplicate and sell for $2 at the corner market. The whole framework of modern chemically dependent farming relies on synthetic poisons. Vinegar shatters that framework completely. So the corporations reacted exactly how massive monopolies react when a dirt-cheap alternative endangers their cash flow. They poured money into academic studies designed to pit acetic acid solely against glyphosate operating under perfect ideal conditions. They pressured the EPA to label highly concentrated vinegar as a restricted pesticide, meaning commercial sprayers now needed special permits to handle it. By the 1990s, they made sure that agricultural extension offices at major state universities quietly dropped acetic acid from their standard weed management teaching materials. And they fought tooth and nail to guarantee that the garden aisles at your local hardware store were stocked only with their patented chemical formulas. This wasn't some explosive cover-up. It was a quiet, methodical blackout, and it held strong for 4 decades. Here is the exact protocol you can start using today. The mixture is crucial, so listen closely. For freshly sprouted seasonal weeds, think first-year dandelions, clover, chickweed, and crabgrass, grab regular 5% white distilled vinegar. Do not water it down, spray it directly onto the leaves. Do this on a clear, dry afternoon, and you'll see an 80 to 100% wipeout within a day. Pick up a massive gallon jug at the supermarket for $2 or $3. Load it into a standard sprayer and hit the yard when the forecast is clear of rain for at least the next 24 hours. Intense sunlight speeds up the dehydration effect immensely. Spraying on an overcast day will still get the job done, but expect it to take closer to 36 or 48 hours. Now, for the deeply entrenched recurring invaders with massive underground networks like nutsedge, bindweed, and thistle, you need a stronger punch. Combine 1 gallon of white vinegar, a single cup of ordinary table salt, and 1 tablespoon of liquid dish detergent. Once the acid destroys the plant's waxy armor, the salt pulls the remaining water straight out of the root system. The dish soap works as a surfactant, helping the liquid stick to and penetrate those stubborn, glossy leaves. Apply this directly to the offending plants, and be extremely careful around the vegetation you want to keep. Acetic acid is entirely non-selective. It murders whatever it lands on. Using a precision squeeze bottle or even a foam brush is much safer than wildly broadcasting spray near your vegetable patches or prize flowers. For the cracks in your driveway, pavement joints, or along fence boundaries where you want nothing to ever grow again, pour that salt and vinegar blend straight into the dirt after ripping out the surface weeds. The leftover salt in the soil will stop new growth in its tracks for a very long time. In 2021, a retired educator living in rural Kentucky documented her shift from spending $140 a year on Roundup to using a pure salt and vinegar strategy across her 2-acre lot. Her entire bill for supplies that first summer was $8.23. By autumn, she had fewer weeds than she did during her final season spraying synthetics. She figured she kept over $110 in her pocket just that first year, and noted that her soil looked noticeably richer by midsummer. But I have to give you the completely honest truth about where this method falls short. Acetic acid only kills on contact. It destroys the visible, above-ground plant, but it doesn't circulate deep into the biological system the way glyphosate is designed to. For ancient, stubborn perennials with massive root webs, you might have to apply it a few times over the summer to completely starve out the root system. These are genuine constraints, but they are incredibly easy to manage. Hitting a weed 2 or 3 times with a $2 liquid is still infinitely cheaper than buying a season's supply of synthetic poison. The catch is that absolutely nobody makes a dime by explaining that to you. The ancient Sumerians were purifying their croplands with fermented acids 5 millennia ago. Roman builders used vinegar to preserve their paved routes 2,000 years before the concept of a chemical conglomerate even existed. Farmers right here in America relied on it every single season through the 1800s, long before laboratory herbicides showed up to trade common sense for corporate addiction. Your own great-grandparents understood this perfectly. They kept a cheap jug under the sink and brought it out to the garden every spring, never once needing to dial a corporation's hotline or decipher a toxic warning label. For a century, this knowledge was handed down for free. Then 5 decades of aggressive marketing brainwashed a whole generation into believing that the jug in the kitchen was strictly for salad dressing and definitely not for solving the $40 nuisance sprouting in the driveway. The vinegar hasn't gone anywhere. The scientific proof that it dominates weeds has been sitting in government databases since 2002. Those Sumerian clay records have survived longer than any chemical brand ever will. A $33 billion empire is banking on you for getting every single piece of that puzzle at the exact same time. You just remembered them. If unlocking this vault changed your perspective today, hit subscribe and pass this video along. Every time you share this, you hand a $2 cure to someone currently burning $40 on an issue their grandmother fixed with a pantry staple. Every new subscriber allows this channel to keep tearing through the dusty archives they thought were permanently sealed. Our next vault is opening very soon, and what's hiding inside that one? It goes even deeper.